Melanie, the Hip Hop Scholar, and I want to thank you again for joining us for another edition to the podcast, the Hip Hop Scholar Podcast. Now, family, our next guest bends time with every bar. Time raps rhymes with clockwork precision, yet every line carries the weight of history and the spark of what's next. Their cadence is a metronome, their storytelling a time machine. This is the rapper called Time, representing Denver, Colorado, who has built a career blending alternative and underground hip hop with sharp social and political commentary. His discography includes Literature from 2004, The Fantastic Reality 2007, Naked Dinner in 2009, and Nostalgia back in 2013, released under Dirty Laboratory Productions. Beyond the music, Time is also an academic, connected to history, pedagogy, or pedagogy, depending on where you're from, and social change. When Time raps, when he steps to the mic, hours collapse into minutes, and minutes turn into memories. It's hip-hop distilled into raw energy, lived truth, and a vision for the future. But here's the part that makes today historic. In just the past 2 years, Time Raps has released an astonishing 18 albums. His range spans introspective solo projects, gritty collaborations, and immersive storytelling. He has built calm with producer awareness, fusing sharp lyricism with textured production and creative, soulful, meditative works with Name Buddha that contrast beautifully with the harder edges of his catalog. Perhaps the most ambitious of all, his 10-volume mixtape series, Paulo's Path, pairing his impenetrable lyricism with legendary beats by The Alchemist, feels like diary entries from a restless, brilliant mind. Add in the grimies with extra cool, and you see an artist on an unstoppable creative streak. What ties it all together is liberatory pedagogy, music as resistance, survival, and possibility. With each release, Time proves himself not just consistent, but committed to evolution, freedom, and truth. It's an honor to welcome Time Raps to the Hip Hop Scholar Podcast, where bars meet bibliographies and culture is always on the record. All right. All right.
That's beautiful. No, Melanie, you're the one with bars. You're a scholar, and wow, beautiful. And I think it's so beautiful to delight in other people and artists, and I want to delight in your podcast too, and what you're doing to a bigger like a bigger audience, but also putting a microscope on it, which is just beautiful.
I love how you put that, like the microscope in a big scope for everyone to see and everyone to witness. Builds my research and also the range in which hip hop really truly brings it. I thank you again for coming on the show today. We are here to learn all things time. So let's start with the name Time Raps. It's real powerful. I say it's a full sentence, but I feel like it's also more to that. So can you walk us through the story behind this name, Time Raps?
I like how you did some time bending and time weaving in the intro. My name for time, like it really didn't start that deep at all. It's not. It was I used to play basketball all the time. That was my main passion, was hoops and hip hop. And it was like an and one shirt, and it said, "I'm like time, I can't be stopped." And it was like a cheesy pun. And I used to always wear the shirt, and then people started calling me Time. But then the more I got into it, I saw like not only how ungoogleable the name is, but also the deepness of it too. Uh, of talking about how time is non-linear. I did a poetry event once, and a woman came up to me and said, "Your name stands for truth inspires mental emancipation." And
Oh,
I thought that was beautiful when she handed me that on the napkin. So yeah, like it has deeper layers that you know, I think it's future to be understood is still yet to be known. Truth inspires mental emancipation.
I know you
That's
appreciated
beautiful.
that.
Yeah.
Oh
Oh
yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's in like sentimental shoebox. I think like I don't really like to make separations between like hip hop and rap and all those things, but when I first was hearing hip hop, I think it was NWA, and my brother had their tape, and I just love the sounds, the words, everything behind it, like the passion. And then I had like listened to Fresh Prince, and then I was into DMX. But then when I heard Mos Def got an album mixtape, which had Do It Now with him and Busta Rhymes, Black on Both Sides. And that album just changed everything. That's what I really think. Like that was like my genesis of really what threw me into hip hop. Because then I learned about Lyricist Lounge and Sound Bombing. So then and then you see how these communities were like rhizomes and branches that went out. So like Shabam Sadiq, Pharoah Monch, Tech and Steel, like all the different crews that were out in New York, and then learning about the Dungeon Family and Outkast. Yeah, it just opened up into like this garden of just like prophets, philosophers, everything. So yeah, that was probably my introduction that just blew my mind with the poetics. But yeah, yeah, shout out to Awareness. That's like my brother in music.
But back into talking about time rap. So let's talk about your writing process. Are you pen to paper? Are you a digital writer? Also, when you your process in writing, do you have to hear the beat first? Are you just writing like spoken word, freestyle? Talk to us your process when you're approaching sharing your lyrics with an audience.
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. I usually just however I can attack a song. So sometimes I write on my phone. Last night I was at the coffee shop. I was working on this till about midnight. So sometimes I write by hand, sometimes I write on computer, just however I can do it. I usually write to a beat, but sometimes if I'm just writing with the beat in my head, I'll do that too. But I usually write to music. Sometimes I'll just pick another beat too, like go on Jazz Vibes on Spotify, pick a beat and then remake the beat behind it with a similar BPM and add any flavor, like however I can really get to it. So I usually just stay in a constant practice and discipline of writing and then just kind of build things together. So yeah,
Oh, it just all just kind of comes together. So you're writing, you're a writer. I wonder how many journals you
yeah.
have over there. How many journals have you written in over the years?
Oh, probably like yeah, hundreds. Like this is just some recent ones, like are all full. So yeah,
I love to
I
see
don't
it.
even know.
That's all right, but that's great though
Yeah.
to continue to keep that pen alive and to write and write more. That becomes an archive, a library, a collection, your estate, even that goes into the mind of time. And it's truly a beautiful thing, especially as a writer myself, to see the process in which people place and create these things together. Because going from the words on the paper and then into the studio, which is your preference? Do you like to record in the studio, or are you a performer, or is it a blend of the both? But which one do you prefer the most, in the studio with those words that you've created, or on the stage with that microphone and the audience right in front of you?
Oh yeah, definitely on stage. When when we toured with Talib Kweli, he said you're not an MC unless you're moving the crowd, unless you're on stages. So I always thought about that and also like hip hop's origins of being in the community and doing events. So yeah, I would say the energy of a show, there's nothing like it because it's a circuitry of an artist giving out their art, their inspiration, but then it's also the circuitry of the crowd, and that's where the energy is, and that's that kind of like what Walter Benjamin was talking about of like Walter's aura of actually being in the area of the art. And yeah, there's something sacred about that, but there's also something ancient about it too. Like this is what we've been doing since we were a species, is getting together and sharing art, playing on drums, sharing stories. So yeah, there's something that's so important about that, and so yeah, so ancient.
Not only with the ancient piece, and I appreciate that, and I had to write down Walter Benjamin, right? I had to write that name down. It reminds me of this article that I'm reading about how hip hop is actually part of computational neuroscience. So just as you shared with the combination of the audience and then the beats and the rhythm and the words coming from the mouth from the artist and the beats coming from the ones and the twos and such, all of that is based on neuroscience, and placing it together creates this movement and this feeling that scientists have yet to really describe, But Ron Egash, he is a professor at University of Michigan, and he talks about that in this article, which I'm diving deep into. But I love how you brought in the history of that griot tradition of having the rhythm, having the beat, and really before there was any type of writing, storytelling and sharing through word of mouth is how many different cultures shared down history, right? And we're still able to do that uh, in a very methodical way. But also, what we also see is that, a lot of mainstream music isn't really focused on presenting that type of goodness, that type of essence of confidence and history. It's more about entertainment, more about, moving people, but not necessarily moving here in their minds, but moving just in the body in a superficial way. And I want for the artists that are here on this podcast to really share out those specifics. And I appreciate what you shared about really going back to that old school nature of wanting to make certain that you carry on the traditions of sharing this story and having your audience to learn something from you.
Yeah, and listen to Saint Jadakiss. Artists, do not rap over your lyrics.
Hmm.
The philosopher Jadakiss said,
I know that's
yeah, rap your own lyrics.
I know
It adds energy. It's a beautiful thing.
I know that's right. Yeah, you want to make certain that it's more than just the beat itself. The beat is one thing, and being a production artist is grand. I mean, they are necessary. I could never put a beat together. I've seen beat making machines and apps. Even the old school with the vinyl records and everything. That's a talent that I do not have. That there is brilliance in it, yet that combination, being able to bring in those combinations, like you were talking about Talib Kweli and DJ High Tech, and them coming together where High Tech had the beats, Kweli had the lyrics, and it becoming this almost like the Power Rangers, even with the powers combined. They create something to save the world, and I say that rhetorically, but also literally, how hip hop truly can save the world. How it does bring in that essence of truth and um, being able to move from a despondent situation into triumph, into feeling like a success, even though you may not be sitting or seeing a success at the time. But that's the true essence of what hip hop is, and you say that in your songs as well. One of which I think what really stood out to me, Tom, is that 10-volume mixtape of Paulo's Path. And I would like also for you to share with the audience that dope artwork behind you that your friend from the UK had created based off of them listening to the mixtape too. Yes.
Yeah, shout out to Brain Freeze who made this, and he's also a hip hop producer as well. And yeah, he made that well listening to Paulo's Path, and yeah. Did you want me to talk about Paulo's Path
I
more?
would love to,
Sorry if I
please.
missed part of
Yes,
that question.
please. Please do.
Okay. Yeah. So, well, I have one point when you said hip hop can save a life or save the world. If nothing else, like it can save a world. In one case where I want to share a story how it really helped me, and it had to do with Talib Kweli and high tech. So I was in high school during 9/11, and at that time, that's when the military came in. They pretty much took over our school because we were like a working class inner city school. So most of these kids weren't going to college. So the military came in and pretty much tried to do a draft on us, telling us we got to go get Osama bin Laden, do this and this. And at that time, the psychological warfare was so high. And if it hadn't been for Dead Prez, they had just released Let's Get Free. It got me to start thinking about propaganda. Then Talib Kweli, he released The Crowd, which was about 9/11. And when he was talking about the inconsistencies with the Oklahoma City bombing, when they said that it was Islamic terrorists who did it instead of these these apartheid supporter Turner Diary white supremacists, um, it opened up my mind to tell these military instructor or recruiters like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to join the military. So yeah, that's just one point of how hip hop can just really change a life and save a life. and alter the world, and who knows in how many quantum ways. But yeah, I just want to share that. But I can go on Apollo's path too.
I mean, the both of them. Before you go on Apollo's Path, thank you so much for sharing that anecdote, though, of that particular album, Dead Prez. Shout out to Talib Kweli and DJ High Tech, because even for me, the song by Talib Kweli, Memories Live, that particular song for
Yeah,
me is just something that it just resonates so much for myself of looking back into the past, sharing it with my sons, and then being focused to move forward, regardless of what may be going on around you. And it saves my life. Lupe Fiasco's song, Hip Hop Saved My Life, sincerely, which is why I'm dedicating my studies. Both of my theses, when I got both of my master's degrees, are in the discourse of hip hop, the genre of it, the use of it, how in history all over the world, there are festivals that represent and support and celebrate hip hop music for what it brings. When I look into there's some refugees in Australia, when they finally have a home, one of the first things that they create when they have a home, it's not the kitchen, it's not a bedroom, it's a studio. So that they can have this spoken word where they can get how they feel out, and that's because of the rhythm and the rhymes and the hope that hip hop brings. So you bring in your anecdote. I appreciate you sharing that so I can share my own. And that is the spectrum of what this podcast brings, is this molecular structure of hip hop that can go in so many different facets. And what it does give, not just for the artist that takes on the reins, but also what it brings to the audience. So as an audience member to Paulo's Path, I would love for you to talk about that process and your thinking with it, because that truly is also what we'll call the ER, right? Triage, even with supporting and giving life to others.
thank you. Yeah, that was really well said. Thanks for sharing your story. Yeah, so Apollo's path just started. I was like, well, I'm gonna do like a 10 song mixtape over Alchemist beats. And then I had like started it kind of loosely based on The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Just but we were like, we're just gonna like I'm just gonna bar out this whole thing. Then and then we were like, let's do another one. And then we ended up doing 100 songs in about 4 months. So it was 10 mixtapes. And shout out to Awareness because he had a mix and master all those. So that was a lot of work for him. But as we went into it, it turned into like its own story. It turned into its own world building, and it was really interesting to see where it went. And we also threw in current events, like we were talking about. I was talking about the ICJ in Palestine and the genocide that they're currently enduring, and we put those in there, put in things on indigenous rights and pipelines being put through indigenous lands, and then it started turning into more of a psychological thing in the last one. It turned into a hero's journey where it was talking about trauma, uh, digging into the deeper parts of yourself, kind of with like a Dante's Inferno like bend to it, and then ultimately looking for your inner child and seeing like where is this creativity coming from? And maybe it's a shout, maybe it's an echo of a scream from your childhood where you're trying to unearth other things. So yeah, it got really deep, and then we did but we couldn't release it all because of Alchemist Beats. So then we did the newest Paula's Path this year, which continued the story, and that was all produced by Awareness. So it's 110 songs, and it's been a cool like world to kind of open up and let other people into.
And to begin with, the Alchemist beats. I mean, it's the Alchemist. His beats are legendary. I mean, he's right now doing some things with Erica Badu. I'm vibing with what he's got with Freddie Gibbs right now. I mean, he is a talented producer when it comes to that. And when you do a mixtape, when you have that, you have to give that respect where, no, I did not, he did not make these beats for me, but that's what inspired you for your lyrics, right? And that's why Alchemist is one of those legendary beat makers, is because his beats just inspire. And there goes that computational neuroscience, the rhythms and the placements of and the accompaniments of every beat and mix and touch it just makes you create something new, right? And then for awareness and you to get together and synthesize all of that to continue with that story, it's just an experience. You've created this award-winning experience for the audience where they get to have this journey of resistance and survival and building that of confidence. And I think that too is what I want. I don't want to say it's lost because there are some young artists that are coming up that are still holding true to that tradition. Yet I appreciate very much so that nod to the old school, that want to make certain that as you continue to build in the future and create new things, that is exactly that. It's something new. It's something that's treasured. It's not always about the money. The money's good, of course. The money's great, but that satisfaction of putting that together, like define the satisfaction of finishing an album, because I know it's not perfect. There are many imperfections, but embracing the success of creating this project, how do you feel? What's the feeling? If you can describe that to us, the feeling of this experience that you all have created with Paulo's Path.
Yeah, I guess the one challenge of creating, there's a lot of challenges, but the main one is learning the balance of surrender because you're never going to get it just as perfect. But if other people aren't also going to hear the scabs that you hear on stuff because they're not in depth with it. So it's just good to let go. And there's a wisdom and surrender that I've learned throughout the years, and also not to die with your song still in you, and that there's other people who, when you release art, people are collaborating with your art in their own way too. So you're not releasing what you think you're releasing. People are meeting it with their life experiences. They're meeting it with their hangups. They're meeting it with their traumas. They're meeting it with their joys. They're meeting it like different hearts all intersect. So people are hearing different albums. Like when Timothy Leary or rapper Anton Wilson were talking about reality tunnels, we're in these different reality tunnels. So like, yeah, so that's one thing I think of. But it's also amazing too to just really grateful that me and Awareness have the companionship and the friendship, and we're like brothers to where we can encourage each other, and we can also be delusional together. Like, hey, let's just try this. Like, find someone who can be as delusional as you, and just be creative. And we had this idea, and it's cool. Like now it's out. So I think that that's like a true alchemy, and it's a beautiful thing when you can have an idea and then you can materialize it. And I always remind artists too, don't get hung up on like if you didn't do it to capitalism's to wishes, like um time isn't linear. And if you're creating, that's a miracle. And if you're creating, that's a blessing. And that's what people need because we heal each other with art. And we're encouraged to be consumers and we're not encouraged to be creators. So it's a form of not only resistance but community building to release art.
So well said there, Tom. That is, I mean, the best way to explain what it is to make it in this music business is the satisfaction of sharing out your words that you have created to an audience. And that goes back to what like you and Awareness were putting together, is trying to access that inner child, right? Trying for, even for the audience, for us to go back into that inner child of ours and remember our goals, remember our dreams, and that the reality tunnels, right? Even being able to go back a bit and Sankofa, even to go back to where you were and to bring it back there, and then moving forward in the same essence of it, instead of this consumerism that we are definitely being overly consumed with. We don't need to keep buying different things, right? We have to invest in books, invest in music, invest in concerts, invest in those shows, invest in self. That's truly what allows for authenticity and for continued quality growth of self. And I'm all for knowledge of self, for everyone to do so. And again, everything you said, I appreciate it grandly, in the way, in the scope that you have brought that. It's very innovative. and influential of what you are creating and have been creating over the years. So you were in high school when 9/11 happened. Were you rapping then too? Were you in high school rapping, or when did you begin putting that microphone in your hand? When did that happen?
Yeah, I've been rapping since I was 13. So I was also rapping at that time. We released like 3 albums in high school. And we would go to and like MC battles were really big at that time, just like in the culture, but also because of 8 Mile. Like 8 Mile had released, so like every city was doing battle raps. So we would do battles and did like state and national battles too, and learned a lot about the craft of freestyling and all those things. So yeah, yeah, I've been rapping for a long time.
Yeah, you've been a rapper your whole life nearly. Yeah, 13 is a very formidable
Yeah,
age, especially to get in that cipher. I love the movie 8 Mile. I use that as a teaching point when I talk about counter argument and perspectives and that with writing, but also, again, that confidence and that unabashed nature of being exactly true to who you are. My students would sometimes comment on, why did he go to work after he won that show? And it's like, because he had to. He had to go to work, and he wasn't over consumed with this limelight of, oh, this celebrity that I am. It's not about the followers. And one of my other podcast interviews, they were like, it's not about the subscribers, it's not about the followers. Social media has people gaslit, where thinking, getting 10 likes on a post is nothing, but imagine getting jumped by 10 people in real life. you know like that in that perspective, in that range, it's not just about the numbers, it's about each and every single person that you are able to actually touch in a real way, not in this passive way where, okay, you've put a heart on my post and now you've moved forward from there. But no, truly, there is something of essence that is here that can truly change your perspective, can change your life, change your thinking, go from wanting to be a nurse to going ahead and moving forward to a medical doctor, or going into the medical profession, no matter if you are 13, 33, or 63. Always being a lifelong learner. And I think that also speaks volumes to a lot of the uh, classic, seasoned hip hop artists that I get a chance to speak with, is that we did so at a very, very young age, and still to this day, um, because that's who we are. Hip hop is a part of who we are, just as we get up to floss and brush our teeth, putting on that music and having that playlist and then creating something from there is just something that's natural. And I want for people to realize that from every different way of life, from where you're from to where you are and where you're going, hip hop has a staple there. Whether it is the fashion, the music, the storytelling, but for you, dear Time, I appreciate the liberation that you bring into your art, and into really the essence of who you are and who you are becoming. So with that piece, 10 years from now, and you'll still be rapping, right? And so maybe not the scope of 10 years, let's say another 50 to 100 years from now, and they have Time Rap's album as a time capsule. What is the feeling that you want for people to come away with when they discover your time capsule 50 to 100 years from now?
that's a deep question. I would say I would say to speak your truth, but also speak truth to power, and also document the times. Yeah, I think that's an artist's responsibility. Like how James Baldwin says that the past is present today. If we're accurately documenting our time and we're documenting what's going on, we can help the future. Because one of my favorite quotes by Lewis Gordon, the philosopher, was that love is doing something that doesn't actually help you, but help someone in the future. That you won't even be part of that timeline. That's a part of love. And yeah, if nothing else, I've always considered that my music would be an archive for the future. They could be, whatever. They could be an archive for the future of things to study, things to learn from. or just sharing art inspire someone else. Like give someone else permission to brush off the doubt and release what their songs in them.
That's right. That's right. That's right. I can't think of what philosopher who said it, but planting seeds to trees that you will never know the shade of is essentially the same premise of
Mm,
wanting to give back to the future by planting these seeds so that someone else can reap the benefits of it. You know, that somebody you may never ever meet. And even now, the beauty of social media is that you're able to reach so many people, right? From all over the nation, all over the world. Um, and being that influential person, right? Using the rhythm and the memory with such urgency to make certain that it encapsulates, your goal. Like you said, Paulo's path was really just a start, and then once you and awareness got together to synthesize it, and I'm sure there's still more to that. That will go along with the rest of the albums, and I can encourage you, as I share with every artist, time, don't ever stop, continue on, still being focused on bringing the best of who you are to extract the excellence from others. I think that's a valuable thing. And though, no, it's not mainstream, this isn't, not yet maybe, but this is, I have a million followers or anything. But at the same token, the people that do follow, the people that do listen to this, it is worthwhile. It is so vitally important and essential for this archive, for your music to be this collection, to be this estate that when, 50, 100 years in the year 3000, when people access it and they can be like, wow, it was very, you know, realistic back in the day, the reality of challenge and change, but triumph in the midst of that. Wow, how did they do that? Let's put this music on and, you know, get that going. And that's what I want for the audience to know about Time Raps, is that that's exactly what your music is. You blend the alternative with the underground hip hop sound, and I am a true underground hip hop artist. Being the independent, being a true art creator even to your music, and thinking about the future even in the present is super important. And you just talked about this too. One of my questions about blending those bars with bibliographies and seeing your music as a kind of scholarship and archiving your community stories, you just spoke on that, and the importance of it. What can you say to other artists, to other hip hop artists, R&B, rock and roll, no matter the genre? What can you tell them about using their music to archive their community story?
I would just tell other artists, just keep going and don't don't get beat up by doubt, and don't get beat up by the algorithm, because even though you have the opportunity to have more reach, we're all we all paying rent to billionaires. We're all paying rent to billionaires with our data, with our subscriptions, and they're creating the theater that no matter what, if you like Drake or Kendrick, the same billionaire gets the money that is eventually funding the war machine. So I would say just keep that in mind, that your failure that you think is what capitalism's trying to give you, because there's $1 billion behind it, and the whole realm is to try to get us to fight each other and argue in comments, and it's a theater that was set up disingenuously, and the algorithm can play chess with a chess master and destroy a chess master. And you're going up against that, and you wonder why people are having mental health issues and depression, because you got this algorithm that can completely destroy you. So I always keep that in mind. Like, hey, release your stuff, believe in yourself, and just keep going. And because I learn from other artists too. So art is a circuitry.
That's right. And using these as bridges to of the gaps that are there, especially for the youth. I tell my students and just young people altogether, you talk about peer pressure. Back in our day, peer pressure were the people on the bus, people in your neighborhood, people at your school, maybe. But now the algorithm pushes this peer pressure, and it manipulates it in a way to make you buy things or feel a certain way or feel that you are less than based off of this algorithm putting this on your For You page when you have to be above it. You got to be above the influence, above the rim, even, just like you were saying earlier. Being above that, right? And being exactly who you are, looking exactly who you are, because all of that is important. Each person is important to the history of the world, being exactly who they are meant to be. And that doubt, brushing off that doubt. And that's what music does. I tell people that your music is a how-to essay. It's a procedural type of an essay that exemplifies how to do just that. You know, you really can't answer the question, well, how do I build confidence? How do I gain influence? Well, take the time to unpack this. Really be analytical. And the essence now of AI that kind of takes that away, that thinking away. I I want to challenge young people and even people in our generation away from AI. It's a good tool, but also you have to unpack and analyze the information, because it's like scripture, whether from the Quran or from the Bible, that the interpretation is all from in the holder. Same with artwork. The interpretation comes from who is looking at it, and your lived in experiences and feelings. That's what comes out of it. So taking the time to listen, gain understanding, asking questions. People don't ask questions a lot anymore. They just go into their AI and say, well, chat, and what am I supposed to do? And it tells them, and they do just that. But that too is an algorithm that we just have to be very mindful of and be above that influence, especially when we think about our own legacies. And, if you're not a billionaire, I'm not a billionaire. My family, man, for sure isn't. But being wealthy in love, wealthy in with friendship, wealthy with a good environment and community, that I can absolutely tap into as needed, like a bank withdrawal. If I need to find happiness, if I need to, just kind of vent a bit, I can actually go have the human experience by listening to a song or listening to music with friends and family members. I mean, all of that is vitally important. Um, and it's artists like you, Tom Raps, that is doing just that. And creating more groups and more artists that do just that. I want for that to be shown and shared and stated in a way where people can not only research your album, but also understand that the work that you all have put in, that dedicated, um, you know, like putting things together, it's easier said than done. Let me say that. I think that when I look into the history of all the music that you put together, especially that music in a short time frame, it was done because I think like you had a spirit in you that said that you have to do this, you need to do this because it's needed and it's necessary. So that's what I'm feeling. I think I'm over talking a little bit, but I want to say that your showmanship and your talent, others so much they can learn so much from you, that it is so important that you realize that. And I hope that I have communicated that to you today.
No, you share so much wisdom and so many gems. So thank you, Melanie. And yeah, no, I really appreciate it. And yeah, I do. Yeah, I just feel like, yeah, it's just a fire um, of the times of some sort of just releasing art. And I think it's important. And yeah, that's why like I wrote this song last night. It was about Palestine. I wrote the whole thing. And yeah, it just came through from place of grief, place of anger, place of sadness. Yeah.
Yeah, and the reality of what's going on there, it cannot be minimized, right? That's just not something that, oh, it pops up on my page, I'll like it and swipe past it. But that is a lived experience for people that are enduring that in real time. And to take the time from, even though we may not be there, but to let them know that we see you, we hear you, we understand, and we advocate for you. I saw your T-shirt earlier too, and I appreciate you wearing the shirt as well. Where
Oh yeah.
yeah, go ahead, show it off. There you go. it's important though. It's these right now there's a battle about what it means to have freedom of speech, what it means to be able to be who you are unabashedly and unapologetically. There's a lot of battles that are happening outside, but we have control. We do have some control to share out who we are and have no fear of those consequences, right? Like there are so many, there's fear mongering of having consequences for speaking your mind and sharing the truth and the facts and the reality of what it is. Um, that's where liberatory pedagogy comes in, and that's something you and I definitely have in common that rung true to me, is that your music liberates people. Like it does bring that nod of understanding survival into freedom, and making those words real because of how you are feeling. It is a complex feeling to care for others, and can't do much about it, but you can do much about it by being active in showcasing your talent, in letting their memories stay alive, and remembrance, and in nods to them. And that goes for so many different aspects of the world, even where we are now as a nation. I think that the goal is not just about learning, it's about freedom. I think freedom from oppression, freedom from consumerism, the freedom to just be who you want to be, love who you want to love, and live where you want to live. And hip hop does that. Hip hop helps us to express that. It helps us to share that out with others. Um, and again, that's what your music does. So for that liberatory pedagogy piece, with your music, when you promote that freedom, what specific ways do you promote freedom within your lyrics?
Yeah, no, thanks for what you just said. I think like first off, like I always think about hip hop on how it started with do for self, each one teach one, build what you want to see in the world. No one's coming to save us. You got to build, have your own things. So that's one thing I always think about is autonomy, and that's one thing I bring into my music, and also like pedagogy. I love Teaching to Transgress by Bell Hooks, where she's talking about like any radical pedagogy is like she talks about, rest in peace to Bell Hooks, that presence is acknowledged. So I think like acknowledgement is huge. Like we're talking about indigenous land that's stolen, these other things, and looking at the layers of what colonialism actually has, and what capitalism takes. At the same end, when I think about pedagogy, I also like to trouble pedagogy too, because if you look at the history of boarding schools and a lot of the universities, they were built from the land grants from Lincoln when he took all the land, and they built all the universities on the indigenous land when he was killing the Lakota. And I think he also did the biggest mass execution of Lakota, 38 people that were hanged. And then I also think about, when we're thinking about do for self, on there was the freedom schools. Those were amazing. And now we're seeing like some of these more troubles of pedagogy again, with schools becoming informants and schools becoming cops now on people protesting, and schools being coerced by state funding. I think these things are like really troubling with the institutions, but I guess that's more like institutional pedagogy. But they're like things I think about with kind of like record labels, with mainstream artists. Like who do they answer to where an independent artist, they can do things, they have autonomy. So these things I think about. And yeah, just and also like thinking about when you were speaking about griots, of like, is literacy liberation? Because there's a lot of like the griots, or like the shamans, or the bardic tradition. I'm Irish, my ancestry. These people weren't literate, and like they were sharing like amazing knowledge. So I don't know. I'm always thinking about like I love that you're into yeah, pedagogy too. So I'm always thinking about these different dynamics and like how and now how they're weaponizing universities against each other. And like I think Judith Butler was just saying that her own university turned her in for anti-Semitism, and Judith Butler's a non-binary Jewish professor there. So yeah, just wild thinking about the power structures. But to answer your question, I try to question power structures and also create outside of them. I think that's really a good, like, create what we want to see.
I appreciate that for sure. Like Killmonger from Black Panther, right? Like he wasn't really wrong in what he wanted to strive to do. He was painted the villain, when in all essence, he was trying to break this system down, which they finally saw in the end. Another example being the Joker in Batman, right? The one that Heath Ledger, I think he was one of the best ones to play that character, but to bring, that chaos out of this rigid reality that the system is trying to force upon people. But okay, well, let's take out this aspect, and now everybody loses their minds. And that's where we are as a society, almost, is that they're recreating this system. And even for hip-hop music, they're trying to recreate this type of music and make it okay, where you can twerk and it's okay. You can not have a family. You can, implant seeds on every single woman that you meet, but what's the point of having a family and making that mainstream okay, when, the core of it is that no, we are connected people. All of us want to have some type of a connection. We all come from cultures that want a family bond and have a communal bond. But this whole algorithm and the use of fear mongering is trying to change who we are, but we won't let them. We're not letting them, whether it's through our instruction, through our music, through our own personas of showcasing our confidence in a time when it is challenging. Going back to when you were in high school when 9/11 happened, I was in college when that occurred, and still being able to move forward from there. And I tell students now, you were in school when COVID-19 happened, and you're still going to college. You're still trying to make it. And that speaks volumes of your strength. You have such potential to be a success despite what these big things that are happening out in the world. And my father, he's the youngest of 14, the sharecroppers, and I've grown up knowing all about Jim Crow and police brutality and all those different things, and still my family was able to rise from that. And knowing that knowledge, knowing that history, those facts about it, and being unafraid to share just that, or even just being where you are. You may not even have to say anything, and your presence being felt is also a piece of this puzzle, to make certain that people can see this view wholehandedly. And again, the music that you showcase, especially as an independent, but also when you collaborate with awareness and all your other producers that you've been with, you do just that. And I give that appreciation to what you bring, and just again, just the appreciation of doing that and continuing to do that, because 50 to 100 years from now, using your music to time travel with, super important. But I think even more than important, I think it's necessary. I think it's life saving, even, that somebody in these times is speaking the truth in a way that can be heard, it can be felt, uh, and forever be changed from there. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, and yeah, just thank you, Melanie, for carving out these spaces, holding these platforms. Like these platforms are these out of algorithm things that break down these thought bubbles that are beautiful. So that's what hip hop is all about, and I love how you really like really emphasize community too, because that's what's so important. Because we're in a loneliness epidemic. People feel alienated, and the work that you do is amazing. Not only this, but as a professor too, and as a scholar, that stuff is amazing.
Yes, sir. I thank you so much because it can get lonely. It definitely gets lonely. But the larger picture, though, I got people behind me. I have my own sons, and 23 years as an educator. There are many students and many families that you know, I can never forget. And I continue on because of that. I've had students that have been murdered. Travion Hunter, he was a fourth grader when he had succumbed to gun violence. And I never forgot that. It was one of my first years being an educator. And in the neighborhood in which, I even grew up in, he fell to gun violence. And he's such a smart student. I mean, he was super smart at the time. And I know that, if he were still alive today, he would be thriving and confident, and I hate that it was taken away from him. But I can never forget students like that. I can never forget where I'm from, the challenges that even I have faced, and the least that I can do is to be a giant. We're losing a lot of giants, like you say, with bell hooks, and many other giants that we grew up with. But it's our time to step into those shoes and have our shoulders against mountains and be unmoved, to showcase that it's going to be okay. It's going to be all right. And you're going to learn and you're going to teach, and it's going to be a beautiful thing. That's the big, beautiful thing there, is being able to be the giant that shares with others, that reaches out. Even like, I really do my best to try to reach out and say, hey, please come talk on my podcast. I want to be able to, pick at your brain and unveil to everyone, and maybe even to you, the brilliance and talent that you absolutely have. And so that is exactly why I had reached out to you, Tom. And even now, as we end the near of our recording, it's just been a super honor, a true honor even, to speak with you, to learn from you. And I open the floor up for you to come back on the podcast at any time that you are available. I would love to have you back again.
Thank you. And you just dropped like 1,000 bars. That was amazing. Just drop the mic. That I loved it.
Yeah.
And no, yeah, thank you. Thank you for opening up this time for me too. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. I'd keep you on for a few more, about 30, 45 more minutes, but I will honor your time. So dear Hip Hop Scholar family, that is it for us today. Time wraps. Definitely check him out, Paulo's Path. His discography is an amazing array of true hip hop lyricism and liberatory pedagogy that is about freedom. It is about the truth, and it is about our future. With that said, Hip Hop Scholar Podcast, we'll see you on the next one. Peace.